Welcome to Public Forum, a community outreach program produced at North Idaho College on the shores of Lake Coeur d'Alene. Featuring guests from around the globe addressing a wide variety of subjects, Public Forum serves to educate and enlighten. Please join host and moderator, political scientist Tony Stewart, in welcoming today's guest.
I welcome you back to part 2 of a 2-week series, and we're discussing economic, social, and political developments around the world and the people and how they're different. We could not have a more fortunate guest to do this. My friend since 1972 is with us, Dennis Wheeler. He serves as the CEO of the Coeur d'Alene Mines Corporation, and they have mines around the world, so he travels in all parts of the world. And I have had wonderful conversations with him about these subjects and invited him to the program. Our distinguished guest holds a Bachelor of Science degree in business from the University of Idaho, and he received a doctorate of jurisprudence from the University of Idaho and practiced law for a while before he became the CEO of this very successful company. Our guest has also served a term on the State Board of Education in Idaho, appointed by Governor Cecil Andrus at the time. He also is a great champion of human rights, and I must recognize once again that with our human rights work here in this area and the Human Rights Education Institute, our guest gave us office space for 2 years, so we had nowhere to be until we were able to get the building from the city of Coeur d'Alene. He also, because of that and many other efforts and contributions, 2 years ago received the very distinguished Kootenai County Task Force on Human Relations Civil Rights Award at the annual banquet. Dennis, you've been a friend a long time. I appreciate you so much, and thank you for taking time from an extremely busy schedule to be with us again today.
It's enjoyable for me to be here, Tony.
And I'm very pleased to have our regular panel. First of all is Janelle Burke, who's an attorney in the state of Idaho, and next to her is Erna Reinhardt, who's Director of Public Relations at North Idaho College, and Janelle will commence today's questioning.
Welcome back to the program, Dennis. Last week was fascinating, and I know our viewers are going to find what you have to say very interesting. The world of mining is virtually the world. It's all over the world. Can you tell us something about communication? When you go into various places in the world, how do you communicate with people, and what does their culture have to do with how you communicate?
Well, probably the most wonderful thing that's happened in the world today, Janelle, is this device, a cell phone, or in this case, a BlackBerry. I mean, I can sit here and literally dial up people in Beijing, Potosí, or La Paz, Bolivia, Santiago, Chile, and have instantaneous communication. We've got a great technology group at CORE. And it's certainly modernized the ability to communicate.
So communication has been one aspect of it, but how about when you're talking to people, do you converse with them, and how much does their culture have to do with how you interact as you're making a deal?
Sure. We involve local community leaders and representatives every place where we do business. And we try to learn their customs and practices, and we utilize them to carry out many of our communications programs in the local community, going side by side with them, if you will.
Because you have to deal with them in order to get employees, but also to get permission to do whatever it is you want to do if permits are required. Is that correct?
Sure. Today's world, every place you go, you really need government approvals and partnerships, we like to call them, with people in the community, the business community, the government cross sections, really.
Thank you.
Erna Reinhardt.
I know we touched on this a little bit last week, Dennis, but I want to get into it a little bit further. You're about to open a huge, brand new $200 million mine in Bolivia. So share with our viewers a little bit about how did you pick that spot, and how long was that in the planning stages, and what will that be like when it opens?
We've worked in Potosí, Bolivia for about 10 years, and utilizing primarily the local Potosians and Bolivians. There are about 32 different native groups in Bolivia, and so it is very interesting to work with those different groups. The miners groups there are called cooperativas, and they may vary from just a couple of people to handfuls, and we have built support networks with them. We practice similar, I guess, community practices in Chile as well.
So are you saying that the mine that you're about to open, you've been working on for 10 years to build it?
Worked on it for 10 years and invested nearly $200 million. We've had 1,800 people working on the site, and it's going to be the largest new pure silver mine in the world when it starts up actually next month.
Excellent. And that will be a silver mine, correct?
Yes.
And to share with us, give us the short story about how you get silver out of a mine.
Well, in this case, it's not dissimilar from a sand and gravel operation. It's a surface deposit, and we will really be using front-end loaders and trucks to load the material and haul it over to a process facility where it will be crushed and ground up into smaller pieces of rock, if you will. And then it'll be semi-refined and produce gold and silver-like bar, or a silver-like bar.
And Dennis, how big is this? How many acres is that site?
Well, I don't know, a few thousand. I don't know the exact extent as I sit here, not being an engineer or geologist, but it's several thousand.
Awesome. Thank you.
I'm going to follow up on Ernest's question. Between the shows, she asked you this, and so since she didn't finish that, I will do it for her. As you process this, you have gold bars and silver bars, but some of that, to get it in its purity, you have to send it somewhere else for processing. Tell us how pure that has to be and what the final form of it is.
Well, mostly what we're used to seeing is 99.9% pure silver or gold in their end state. That's usually the final stages of that purity are usually done at refineries in off-site locations. So, you know, we employ people like Brinks or Wells Fargo with security services to transport our products to those places, and also to rail or, you know, vessels for shipping in different parts of the world.
But as you're processing this, it starts out the silver and gold is mixed in with other types of rock. Now you have to pull that out, don't you?
Yes, generally there's a chemical process, Tony, that's utilized to free the mineral that you're seeking from the background rock.
It's not like, my question is so ridiculous, it's not like you go into the side of a wall and there's this gold, you just pull this gold out and it's all gold.
That takes a little more than that.
It's a little bit like in the West when they used to take the pans and they would sift through and looking for the gold.
Well, placer mining, sure.
Yeah. I want to get in another area with you because I'm proud of your record there too. Four-term Governor Cecil Anderson appointed you to the state board. For those outside of our state, we have a 7-member board, and all but one are appointed by the governor. One's the superintendent of public instruction elected, and you serve there. And you've been very supportive of the public schools and North Idaho College, and you've been a great friend of the University of Idaho. Just take the time you need and share with us what you believe is so valuable with not only K through 12 but higher education, and what that does for people, and your type of commitment to education.
You know, Tony, every place I travel today, for example, China, Chile, Argentina, Bolivia, people are hungry for knowledge. They are hungry and they're driven to succeed. Almost all of these places, English is becoming the universal language. Bright, capable, young people, energetic, and they're really quite competitive. Education, you know, is the tool that's allowed them clearly to develop their economies. I think it's probably the #1 reason for whatever success I may have enjoyed. You know, growing up in Wallace and going through the public schools there, but then the University of Idaho, the law education I gained in the state of Idaho, I've never felt disadvantaged at all in my travels, and I think we have wonderful, solid institutions of higher learning here. And if it's one message I'd like to leave with your viewers today, it's take advantage of the wonderful educational opportunities here in this region to advance their lives.
Well, the education you got to state, it's self-evident with your success, both as an attorney and then this tremendous success of the Coeur d'Alene Mines Corporation. I think when you first started out as the head of it, there were 9 employees, and it was all in Wallace, Idaho, and look where it's gone now. And you had to have information, knowledge, and critical thinking skills to see the future and what could happen.
Well, I've been blessed to have a lot of good people around me too, Tony. So it's really been a team effort. But I've always felt that I was blessed for what I learned in the Coeur d'Alene Mining District and in the state of Idaho itself. It's helped me for sure.
And one final question: we many years ago did something wonderful in this country that's helped our democracy, and that is public education and people having the opportunity of building a very large middle class. Sometimes out of our prosperity now, do we take it for granted, or young people, do you find that young people in other parts of the world where development is somewhat behind as far as, you know, the rate of literacy compared to this country, do you find young people there more appreciative of acquiring education than here where we are so blessed and it's so much easier to get?
I don't know that I'd say more appreciative, Tony. You know, we have a lot of bright young students here, but clearly they're being provided opportunities in education that they know are improving their really rudimentary standards of living. And they see, because of television and the internet, etc., what we in modern society have, and they want those things.
Yes. Janelle Burke.
In the early years of the last century, the mining world was pretty narrow. For example, the Coeur d'Alene Mining District was a district. Today, mining is done worldwide, and you've traveled, of course, to many different countries with your mining industry. Can you speak a little bit to the natural resources as a world issue, natural resources being something that the entire world is interested in now?
Well, there is, of course, a big demand, a growing demand worldwide for minerals now, including our products, fortunately, primarily silver. And that's just because there are a growing number of people who can afford to have the things that, whether it's television sets, jewelry, electrical applications of all kinds, decorative silverware, you know, houses with copper roofs, you know, steel foundations for buildings, concrete. I mean, you name it. Every application really involves a mineral of one kind or another, Janelle, and so there is a growing demand. And I think just about every country carries on an active search, you know, for the minerals they need. Many have to import them.
Thank you.
All right.
Dennis, share with us what are some of your industry challenges that you see coming before you in the next 10, 20 years?
I think number one will be our ability to continue to train, educate professional people to join the mining industry, and the wonderful miners themselves that need to be trained, both men and women. We have wonderful men and women at Coeur, but there is a shortage developing because of this growth in the world demand for minerals. And unfortunately, we probably could do a better job of telling the mining story as to the employment opportunities. Mining to this day remains one of the highest paying industries in the world and provides very good careers for people. If young people are seeking, you know, foreign travel opportunities and exposure with good living standards, mining's a place they ought to take a look.
Before I forget, on the show, you were very good to give us a place that you can be contacted. And so I'll ask our staff to put that up on the screen, and if you would give that to them. And almost everybody has computers now, and if they have questions or issues or like to pursue a career, and some information could be given. The website's up now. Would you please tell them what that is? It's
www.core.com.
So it's COEUR.com.
Yes.
That's wonderful. My question has to do with your interns. I was aware of that before. And give us a little story about, in my work here, we have practicum in public governmental positions and sometimes it really sparks a student to have a practicum and say, now I know what I want to do because I have some hands-on or observing. So give us a story about how your interns, how that really helps them in the educational process, or maybe even focus them to what they want to do.
Well, we have current programs, for example, with the University of Idaho, Gonzaga University, University of Nevada, Reno. I think we provide some financial support, Tony, to North Idaho College, and years ago you probably will remember that we donated a building here on the campus, a former resident to NIC. So we try to be good corporate citizens, and education is important to the people of CORE.
And a lot of those interns are going to go into that field, and that's why they want to intern with you.
We're hoping that they'll enjoy their experience, and that some will come back to CORE. That's the purpose.
Yes. And one final question on that area for me, and that is young people who are watching us, and you've excited them, I hope, to say, the pay is good, and there are a lot of rewards in it, and there's travel if you're interested in travel. What advice would you give to, for example, seniors in high school or people just starting their college? What kind of a major should they have if they want to go into the mining area? What is the different fields that would be helpful to them?
Well, I think it can vary any place from just a broad liberal arts education, Tony, to accounting, finance, engineering, executive assistance, computer literacy, marketing, really a broad environmental services. There's really a broad application of skill sets.
So there really are different majors that can get into the field.
Yeah,
different
for
fields.
sure.
Yes, thank you. Janelle Burke.
As we've talked about before, you've traveled in a lot of different places, and many of our viewers are going to be people who would like to go on trips to maybe some places that are not the usual types of places, that not the Parises and not the great centers of Europe, but perhaps would like to go to some of these more unusual places. What advice do you have for them when they are traveling to places that are maybe not as common? What kinds of things would you suggest that they look into?
I think my number one recommendation today to people would be to take a trip to Asia. We read about what's going on in China, for example. I've been fortunate to make a number of trips over there. But it really is on a scale that is hard to comprehend. I mean, I've been to many places now that turn up to be cities of, maybe 3 to 5 million people that I've never even heard of before. And it's quite remarkable, thanks to their communication systems that largely arise from the cell phone that's spreading throughout the country. Many of them speak English. They're becoming highly educated, trained, but just those masses of populations, and to see to it that see for yourself that these people really do appreciate Americans for the most part. They're curious about us. They really want to have good relationships with us, and there are opportunities.
And I suppose seeing for yourself how much things are changing and how rapidly they're changing is a bit astounding. Is that correct?
It's really incredible. When I first went to China in 1998, on the streets of Beijing, the mode of transportation was largely bicycles. I mean, thousands of bicycles going down the main thoroughfares. And today, you would be amazed at the number of cars on the streets of Beijing, Shanghai, different places. I mean, they're really rapidly changing.
You mentioned, I think earlier, maybe it was last week when we were on the show, but a little bit about how you value community involvement, not only here in Coeur d'Alene, but also in all of your locations where you have a presence. So share with us why that is important, and I guess any advice that you might give professional people for how they might want to get involved in their community, what they could do.
Well, I guess it's really as simple as having a feeling that you've got an obligation to give back to the community what it gives to you. And, you know, all of us around this table have become involved in community activities of one sort or another. First of all, our people enjoy doing it. You know, you get personal satisfaction out of doing things like sitting around this table today and just talking. So, you know, we do encourage the people at CORE to pursue their community interest, and it builds strong support for the company. You know, they observe that we have a certain corporate culture or behavior that they can trust and rely on, and that we're not just there with our hands out, that we give back, whether it's to the new library here or the Chamber of Commerce building or the Kroc Center. We try and demonstrate our appreciation to the community for the support they've given the company and the people.
That's really a good citizen corporation, a corporate citizen, and your company really exemplifies that, and you certainly have been leading in that. We have some time left, but I'm going to go back to human rights because it's so important to me, and we've made lots of progress and over time, but we have more progress to make. What would you say to individuals that don't have the same kind of appreciation and they are struggling with their prejudices based on race and color, religion, whatever it may be? What advice can you give them to help them search themselves? But you know, are they poor in the sense that they don't understand certain cultures if they isolate themselves? What kind of advice would you give?
Well, Tony, to me, one of the really great benefits in my life is being able to meet different peoples. It doesn't matter if they are Hispanic, Africans, Chinese, Chileans, Argentinians, Bolivians. They all have a character about them that helps you grow as a person. I mean, to me, it's fascinating to see the way different people live and what they practice in their communities, their mannerisms, their food, etc. But you know, they also have certain core values that are very similar to ours. Mm-hmm. They want to be happy people. They want to be industrious people. They want to participate in their communities and have friends. And I think that it's a growing experience. It enriches your life to set aside, maybe people will set aside what they think are differences and just kind of dive in and get to know somebody wherever they travel. I know they'll be better people because of it.
More broad-based and more appreciative.
More broad and based and happy.
That's a key word. And I know over lunch when we've talked, sometimes you've shared some wonderful stories and some of your friends around the world, like New York and all. And it gives you a lot of support too from others that appreciate what you've done. Janelle Burke.
As the CEO of a company, you have to work with a lot of different groups. You have to work with the groups that are perhaps protesting. You have to work with the groups that are supportive. You have to work with the government groups. You have to work with the non-government groups. You have to work with all these different people, your employees. How do you balance all of those different needs and make it come out in a very positive solution?
Well, it takes constant effort and involvement and demonstrated practice, Janelle, in the communities or the countries where you are. I think peoples wherever you do business have a right to inquire and to be assured and expect that you are going to conduct your business in an ethical way that, in our case, respects the land and the resources, that provides genuine opportunities and contributions to the communities where we work, that we're going to have safe and clean mining practices. I'm very proud of the people at Core because they have distinguished themselves in the area of environmental stewardship and safety, for example, and community involvement.
You've done an illustration of economic development along with a good environment. They can be partners, they don't have to be adversaries.
Not at all, Tony. And of course, there are many different, they call them, I guess we call them NGOs in today's world, but we've got different groups that are interested in the environment, for example, that have different memberships and different ideas how you go about that. And sometimes it's difficult and a little frustrating, I will share with you, for sure, to reach a consensus. But normally our experience out of those processes is you do reach a meeting of the minds to where everybody ends up with their fair share, and they end up being proud of contributing to success.
We have just about a minute left, and we do this oftentimes at the end of the program. What other advice would you like to give our viewers? We've had 2 great weeks with you, and what words of wisdom would you leave with our viewers?
Well, there are a lot of opportunities in the world today. Americans are perfectly capable of competing any place on the globe. If they just remember that people have certain core values or common interests no matter where they go, I think they'll just fit in fine in working with the communities. They ought to take advantage clearly of local education opportunities like we have here at NIC and the university partnerships. That's, I think, number one in terms of creating expanded opportunities for yourself, Tony, and don't think you have any monopoly on thought.
I am really glad I asked that question. What great wisdom you shared with our viewers, and I'm really glad to end with that. Ladies and gentlemen, our guest has been Dennis Wheeler, who is the CEO of the Coeur d'Alene Mines Corporation and a great charitable giver to not only our community but around everywhere he is. And we've been discussing economic, social, and political developments around the world. Please be with us again next week at the same time when we will discuss yet another issue. Until then, please have a good week. I am Tony Stewart.
Recorded on the campus of North Idaho College, Public Forum is the longest-running in-house college production on PBS. Each episode is pre-recorded live and is an educational outreach from North Idaho College. Please join us at this same time next week for another edition of Public Forum on this public television station.